it only, it's for this, for that, but they're really treating it like a threat. And one of the things that can't be attacked is your self-custody Bitcoin. And one of the things that can be attacked is the ETF. You can't be exposed to that. That's my view. It's not a good idea. And by the way, that'll hit MSTR too. It'll probably hit other stuff as well. Friends and enemies, welcome back. Canadian Bitcoiners podcast.
Friends and enemies, welcome to the CBP. Want to be better informed? Listen to Len and Joey. Spots is taken care of right off the top. Bull, Bitcoin, and easy DNS. The media is feeding the slop. It doesn't matter what topics discussed. Quality entertainment and information you can trust.
That's being planned or at least discussed. You know, we're not going to allow people to buy
entertainment and information you can trust. Send the guy some value, boost them with some stats. Bitcoin is a scarcity asset, I mean it's just a fact. Geopolitical, national, down to the local clown.
Hell of an intro, ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies. Welcome to yet another edition of the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. I'm Len. Joey is going to be on his way. He's just having a battle right now with his bowels. Let's see who wins that. Well, he is just about to join us, so I am not going to do it.
Fuck is going on? Fuck is going on? Good to see you.
You seem a few pounds lighter, Joey. You seem like you have a spring in your step.
This is an ongoing process, okay?
Evil wind running, that's been following you
around. I'm running knots right now on the lower half of my bowel here, so let's just see what happens.
Are you also filtering shit out to make sure that doesn't get through?
The filters are working. Yeah, they're working great.
Excellent. Welcome back.
What's going on? Thanks, buddy. Good to see you. How's things? Good?
Yeah, very, very good, Joey.
Good.
Nice day in Southern Ontario. I don't know where the heat is hitting, but at least in our neck of the woods, it's really nice. At least somebody like me likes it. So
yeah, got to be 45 with the Humidex, something like that.
You know what? When I boil water, it boils at 100. When it freezes at 0. It's not what it feels like; it's what it hits.
True.
That's
yeah.
So my car, the temperature, it's not what it feels like; it's what it actually is. So this feel like stuff, I like that. It's good and all, but the reality is, it's not for me.
Yeah. So good to see everyone. I don't know what Len has done yet. Probably not the ads. So maybe we'll start there.
just started. You know, I waited for as long as possible, give you enough time.
I appreciate that.
Just get the wand and do a nice clean job over there. Get the hose.
I appreciate that.
Well,
let's do the ads. But Easy DNS is our what do you call Mark? A presenting sponsor, lead sponsor. He's the OG on this podcast. He's your friendly neighborhood registrar. If you want to start a new website, grab a domain, port a domain, Mark can help you with all that stuff. He's got all the best virtual private server options for the Bitcoin enthusiast. We talk about it all the time. BTC Pay Server, Nostr Relays, Bitcoin nodes. You can do it all over there. Plus line, easy mail, domain sure. And there's a few other things in the hopper too that you can grab for your domain for a couple extra bucks. Always worth it. We talk about the importance of these things on Axis of Easy all the time. And actually, Axis of Easy, Len, Bitcoiners now suddenly concerned about Bill C2, which we have been talking about over there in its different forms for, I don't know, a year probably. It was Bill C65 for a long time. Now it's Bill C2, and it's the same sort of data breaching and overreaching that Mark can prevent from affecting you at some level anyway, over at Easy DNS. So go there, use the code CBP Media, get half off your first round of buys. Load up, man, buy a couple domains, and get started on your little portfolio with Mark.
What's the mempool like, Joey? Do you know what it is like? Is it good or bad?
The mempool?
I mean, off the top of your head, do you know if it's full or not? If it's
I'm guessing for next block transaction, it's 90 cents.
So the last block that was built, it had an average of 7 sats per V byte. So I thought it'd be a little bit lower than that. It looks like the blocks are slowly filling up, which means when you buy your Bitcoin at Bull Bitcoin, you may want to start looking at other options besides just using on-chain. On-chain is still the way to do your buys and potentially sells, but Lightning is a solid way to do it. Lightning, we talked about it offline. No, I didn't talk about it. Somebody is talking about it.
Yeah,
it's the cleanest way and private. Like, good luck. Is it Tesnik was trying to figure it out, comparing it to a shitcoin called Monero, and Monero you could trace stuff potentially. Lightning you can't.
Yep.
So in terms of privacy, Lightning has you beat. So you could use that when you use Bull Bitcoin. You could do daily cost averages now with Bull Bitcoin. A lot of people are starting to do that because, you know what, I'm starting to see people use our code, and I'm liking this. People are using Bull Bitcoin because why? They're mission focused. They provide you the right service that you want. They're non-custodial. They won't rug you when you put your buy in. You got to provide an address to send it to. You can pay your bills with Bitcoin. A lot of different things you can do. Check them out. Open an account. Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, Europe, some parts of that.
Yeah.
And who knows what's next. Bull Bitcoin.
Pablo just did a couple of podcast appearances. I recommend people check out. One
like
with
Pablo. He's a cool dude.
me too, man. He's out there grinding. He did one with the Your Life Your Terms guys. Anthony did one with them, and I just saw another appearance that he did that I haven't checked out yet. So I'm going to
Isn't he in
listen to
Prague?
those. He might be in Prague with some of the other Euro Bull guys. Good crowd, man. We love those guys over at Bull, and you guys will love them too. Len, boosts maybe, then some housekeeping. What do you think?
Yeah, I got only 4 boosts worthwhile to speak of. Owen, 350 sats, and it is an eggplant.
Love it.
An eggplant.
Yeah, everyone knows what that means.
Mo BTC Dick, 500 sats. He writes, Len's in Vancouver. Beautiful BC baby. And I think this is with respect to me losing my keys. I was joking last week on a street that I cannot name. No, I'm not in Vancouver. I didn't travel to Vancouver ever in my life. I was just, trying to poke fun at a particular name of a city street now I can't pronounce it. I don't even know if Google Maps is going to pronounce it. Make a left on?
Yeah, friend of the show,
don't know.
Ken Sim, pronounced the name, I think, at a press conference last week. I didn't listen to it, but apparently it's not that hard. I mean, I'm still against the spirit of this move anyways, but at least you'll be able to say it when you call 911 because you've been stabbed with a syringe by a homeless man who's pissed on himself.
It's just the wait time. It may be too long. Toronto's having a huge issue with 911 wait times being much longer than what they should.
I bet.
And Doom Satoshi, 521 sats, does this twice. And both times he says the exact same thing. Thank you for your time.
Got you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's it for the notable sats.
Love it. Love it. Housekeeping, none. It's summertime. Let's get into the show. Where do you want to start?
Ooh, that was fast. It's going to be, again, a rather quick, I think, Bitcoin-related thing. Because with respect to Bitcoin, I think it's been overshadowed with what's going on in the world.
Sure.
So,
including, by the way, a ceasefire just announced minutes before the show started. So,
and that's what caused the spike.
Oh, yeah, buddy. Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about that after because I'm curious. But we'll lead off with that story I think you like to talk about. Because you and I talked about this briefly offline, and it's Coinbase. They filed with the SEC to allow them the ability to offer up blockchain-based stock trading. What is this? Right? Digitized stocks.
Yeah.
Right? It's tokenized equities, right? It's a different way to compete against companies like Robinhood, because Robinhood, they've been encroaching on Coinbase's territory by offering up Bitcoins and shitcoins. So don't know if this is a way to stick it to Robinhood or just a way to expand their influence and gain some more revenue. I'm pretty think it's the latter of the two, but either way, this is what you're doing. And I wonder what blockchain is going to be used. If something is going to have to be used in order to do it, it's going to be offering shitcoins on a shitcoin blockchain, I presume. And I even think that maybe the SEC would be the one administering it. I don't think it would be somebody like Coinbase or they would pawn it off to anyone. But that's just if they ever do decide this, because I find this story kind of funny too, right? Like the fact that Coinbase is asking the SEC's permission for this. We're both old enough, Joey. At least I am for sure. And I remember the SEC when they were being sued. Sorry, when the SEC was suing Coinbase. Sorry.
That was like 2 years. That was like 2 years ago. It wasn't even that long.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. And why? Because they were operating an unregistered broker, right? And
the claim was that they were selling shitcoins that were ultimately securities. Yeah.
And what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? So, anyways, this tokenized thing would be the first of its kind in the US. The SEC has to date never approved such a thing before.
Right.
And so the question then remains, end user, what's the benefit? Why would the end user want this? Like, what's the thing? I think, like Bitcoin, this has the potential to be traded 24/7. Right? Bitcoin obviously doesn't close. And if it runs on something, maybe potentially it could run 24/7. So you got it rushed by the end of the day, end of close to sell or buy some Apple shares. You don't need to do that. This thing is going to run regardless. day, night, holiday, doesn't matter. And also, there's potential for fractional shares. Now, I know they already offer fractional shares, but they can make it potentially the unit bias even easier for people to onboard.
Really break down the pieces.
Yeah, 50 cents for something like a share in Apple or something. Like, who the fuck knows? They can do whatever they want. And another thing is potentially this would be quicker settlement, right? Like, depending on what blockchain they use, how they build it, how they use it, the settlement of that, it could be significantly faster than what it is right now. What we have right now when you go through the brokerage is what, T+2 or something like that?
Yeah.
So the settlement, the existing system is very slow. The alternative, which is being proposed here, and I'm reading, I'm trying to read between the lines here, it could potentially be much faster. Also, overhead. Right now, the overhead, you got your brokerage, clearinghouse, bank, all this shit involved. You can eliminate all that.
Mm-hmm.
The overhead is then much less. It's the drawbacks, though. What's the drawbacks? It's a shitcoin, right? It is essentially, it's something. What sort of investor protection would people get? How much more would the Federal Reserve have to print in order to make people whole if something were to happen? Because shit does happen with these things, especially things that are brand new. Things break, things fuck up. There's downtime. Look at Solana. There's periodically that thing goes down. All it is it's interesting stuff. I would say that, which is a star. Buy Bitcoin and leave the shitcoinery behind. This stuff is interesting. I know you and I chat about it offline, but I don't know. I think it's just more of a buy Bitcoin mentality for me.
I don't think it's a shitcoin in the way that other stuff is a shitcoin. And when I think about what tokenized trading is, you did a pretty good job summarizing it there. It's a token that might represent one share, or half a share, 1/10 of a share, whatever they decide the denomination is going to be, on some accompanying blockchain network that is transparent. It's all the good things about blockchain, all the bad things too. Faster settlement. You're not worried about stuff like mining and whatnot on these private chains. So typically you're going to see pretty quick settlement times. It's 100% centralized. I don't think, I'll just address a couple of the comments that you made. I think some of them are good. I think some of them are wrong though. Like the one comment you made about, if something happens, how much more printing is going to need to happen to make people whole. I think the answer to that is none, because those shares have to be pegged to a stock at some level. So if you're suggesting that the SEC will let Coinbase trade paper equities, like, I doubt that. Coinbase has done a lot of things that I think are detrimental to Bitcoin, but they so far have not been caught, at least, or been corralled by a bad trading day or a high leverage moment where price crashed and they had to do something that they shouldn't have otherwise had to do because of paper derivatives, for example. They don't seem to be doing that. So that's one thing. Other thing that I would say is that this is more interesting to me than just buying stocks. And I'll tell you why. If you can trade stock tokens with other people even if it's just Coinbase users, I think a lot of people will start using that in place of cash. If I was someone who was like buying lunch for a group and everyone had a Coinbase app and wanted to pay via the Coinbase app instead of a mix of PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, whatever. Here in Canada, it's even harder because if you're an American, you can't even use e-transfer here, unfortunately. So just a mess, right? But let's say you don't have a bunch of Bitcoiners there. You could presumably use Coinbase to settle the transaction with your friends and get that total value in stock token, stock token X or Y, which is interesting to me because I think a lot of people who talk about, it's the Bitcoin is a threat to the dollar, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that is true, but I actually think this is a significant threat to the dollar. That's even more immediate if they allow this sort of thing. A lot of people would prefer stock tokens to cash, especially if they're, tax efficient in some way. Like, is Coinbase going to offer tokenized stock trading in 401ks and IRAs? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Other thing I'll note is that Coinbase is at this point notorious for using the firepower they have on the legal side and the regulatory capture side to try and be the first mover and then yank the ladder up. I expect that to be the case here, but it seems to me like Robinhood and a few other places probably have this capability right now as well, as long as there's legal clarity around it, or as long as there's a guarantee that there's not going to be any action, which is one of the things Coinbase is asking for. Either you give us a no action letter or you give us exemptive relief to trade the securities. So that's another thing. The question of custody is an interesting one because the SEC, I think we talked about this at work the one day. People don't realize the SEC actually owns every equity. They own every stock, everything. So it's like a sort of settling layer trading hub for every single equity. And you get a paper representation, of course, as is the case in many of the different fiat games people play. Not your certificate, not your stock, as the saying goes. So would they custody every token as well, or would they set aside a certain number of stock certificates that were available for trade on Coinbase? If they did that, then presumably the stock would trade at a different overall price if the demand for tokenized stock was greater than the demand for stock certificates in the traditional sense. There's a lot of moving parts to this, but I like it. Honestly, I like it as a Coinbase shareholder, No, not financial advice. But the other reason I like it is because I think, Len, that this is another kind of shot at traditional finance and specifically stuff like selling order books, right? And front running retail investors for pennies at a time, every second, every half second, whatever these guys are doing on Robinhood and Cash App and Wealthsimple. It's always in the terms of service that if you're a retail investor using these things, your order is submitted to the highest bidder basically, and they get to see everything that's coming in. Then they make a trade and they make a couple bucks off that. So, you're taking a chunk out of that presumably. And also I just want to see more competition. We talk about this all the time from the bank side. TD recently, I think we talked about this on the show, started offering half share, partial share trading, whatever. Fractional shares is the term I'm looking for. And I went to try it out, and they're still charging $10 for every buy and $10 for every sell. So they're obviously not seeing enough competition. So you want to introduce more competition, and it's hard to make the case that you should pay $10 or any dollars or any cents on a basically, like you mentioned, zero overhead, zero capital invested blockchain transaction that's centralized. There's no need for miners, no need for anything else. You want that at some level. Now, I agree with you that your time is better spent just buying Bitcoin as opposed to going to this second derivative equities option. I'm not just going to buy equities in Wealthsimple. I'm actually going to go download Coinbase. I'm going to get these equity tokens and then try and figure out how they work and what to do with them and stuff. I think that's maybe a bit of a stretch for now, but what first move didn't seem unnatural at first.
It's
right?
not the unnatural thing. Let's talk. You spoke a lot there, and I just want to touch base on a few points.
Sure.
Is ETH a shitcoin?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Centralized?
Yeah.
Difficult to run a node?
Yeah.
Impossible to verify how many units are in circulation?
Yeah. Close anyway. Yeah.
Well, these are good metrics to figure out something is shitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, if this is run the way I believe it would be, would you be able to run a node to verify anything?
No, of course not.
Would you be able to? Then
it's a stock, right? But there is controlled totals. There is intrinsic value in having shares of Apple, the company, or Microsoft, the company.
Some people have value in a single ETH. What I'm trying to get at is it checked off a few of those check boxes. To me, that's a shitcoin.
Yeah.
I can't verify, centralized.
Yeah.
Now let's just play this out, right? Say they go ahead with it. You have company, it's publicly traded. There's 100 shares out there, and now you want to have it tokenized. How do these 100 shares get tokenized? Does Coinbase have to buy one share and then sell it to somebody that wants to buy it? And then tokenize it how does
this is the question. That's the custody question, right? But ultimately, there's going to be. I think the reason this is a question at all is because there's just no precedent for this. We've never tried this. No one's tried this before, right? So
you're right, but somebody's going to have to. There's got to be some mechanism to burn something to create something else, or else you're going to be creating more and it'll be a paper thing, right?
Okay.
Right. There's got to be destruction of something and a creation of something else.
There has to be control over the total issued shares, but that's for the company to deal with, right? The SEC and the company deal with that, and how they're tokenized is a different beast
Now-
entirely, but I don't think it's like I don't think it's a risk
No,
in
no.
terms
Now
of like
Coinbase gets hacked.
okay,
Hypothetically, Coinbase gets hacked.
yeah,
I'm the hacker. I go
Yeah.
into your account. I take whatever you have there. I liquidate it into something else. Now I have
Yeah.
it in Bitcoin. You can't take it from me. Now you could take away the. Now I sold those tokenized shares to somebody else, to a third party. What are you going to do? Rip them off? Make you?
Well,
Somebody's going to have to be made whole here.
I mean, it's the same thing you would do.
And
Yeah,
it's going to
yeah.
have to come from the federal.
Okay, so this is
Reserve.
this is the printing you're talking about. Yeah, is there
Heck
more
yeah.
is there more potential to like have to fill a gap because someone's Coinbase accounts gets hacked? Like I guess, yeah, that's a fair point. But I don't know how much like that gap that you're talking about between the amount of dollars being printed now and the extra amount that would be printed if there was a Coinbase hack after a year of trading equities. Like it's just not it's a statistically insignificant number compared to
really
what's
is.
going on.
100%. It's just another drop in the bucket, or it could be quite a bit. In terms of the value of the overall trading market versus the M2 out there, there's a significant percentage there. I'm not going to say it's all going to go tokenized, but there's potential that a lot of it can, because as we said, less overhead. You could trade 24/7. There could be fractional shares. There's a lot less friction going to that way. And then if that's the case, if you get a lot of equity flowing in there, then that's a significant percentage of the overall M2 that's USD M2 that's floating around.
Yeah.
And then that's what I'm trying to get at. A hack, and if somehow Coinbase or Fidelity or whomever is doing costing this stuff or doing the issuing, it's a honeypot. And if you have a honeypot out there, you're going to have attackers coming in different ways. Eventually, their fortress right now that's been able to hold off all these attacks will eventually fail. It's a central entity that's holding on to shit.
Just looking quickly here, because I don't want to say something that is incorrect. There is precedent for this. Binance started doing tokenized stock trading in 21 in non-US markets of
SEC
US
has never done.
stocks. Yeah, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft. Binance partnered with CM Equity AG, a regulated German financial institution, to custody the underlying shares. So there's your custody answer. There's a third party holding them. Each tokenized stock was backed 1-to-1, and users could buy fractional shares up to 1%, so 0.01, making it accessible to retail investors. Yeah. So the other example of this is FTX. Obviously, we know how that turned out.
The big factor here, the big variable is the SEC, and they want to control as much as possible.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, they want eyes. Yeah,
and for sure they're going to want as much oversight as possible, and I can understand that. If I had that type of control that they have, I wouldn't want to let loose.
Well, they need it. They need that control over the equity market, because if there's any market where there's more scammers than altcoins and shitcoins, it's in public equities. There's no doubt about that. So.
And that's the central node that's going to be running it. I can't see them.
I don't have that big a problem with them running, like, as long as they run it with the same sort of the same what's the word I'm looking for? The same level of competence that they run the trading options now. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I don't think it's that important.
A central bank running a CBDC where they have proof of authority, that's the way they run things. This would be the very similar thing where they could essentially do what they want. They could nullify a transaction or
I'm not saying those concerns are not. Yeah, I'm not saying those concerns are not valid. I just think they're out on the curve is all. That's a bit of a right curve risk. That's our right tail risk, I should say. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think the two things I would tell people is, you probably don't need tokenized securities because you have a lot of the same flexibility in apps like Wealthsimple already. Wealthsimple even introduced 24/7 trading a little while ago on a lot of equities. So there's that.
You can?
Yeah.
They're allowing?
Yeah, I can go on right now and sell, like, I think it's like probably the top 100 S&P companies. For sure, it's like half the stuff I own, Apple, Microsoft, Google. You can sell and buy and sell that stuff after hours now for free. There's no additional cost to me. I'm sure someone somewhere is getting my orders, but we already talked about that. The second thing I would say is that you have to imagine that people who are coming to Coinbase for stock trading are going to wind up buying Bitcoin at some point, because they're going to see that price flash in front of them all the time on the app. They're going to see all the gains. They're going to see all the stories about this stuff. And, like Len and I, and probably like many of you start off trading stocks in a currency that you think is valuable. And before you know it, you realize that it's not what you thought it was. And you wind up in Bitcoin at a level you didn't think was responsible when you started, but now you think is the only responsible way to handle your finances. So I would say that this is another opportunity for new entrants to find.
Yeah, potentially capturing a new audience.
Yeah, because Coinbase flashes that price all the time. I should have downloaded the app and had a look and see what that interface looks like these days. Because I remember when I had it years ago, the first thing that flashed to you was the Bitcoin price. So, I mean, if you're looking at that every day and one day it's 60K and then 3 months later it's, 110, that's going to raise some eyebrows, right? And people might start buying that. And I think that's a reasonable expectation. But again, what I don't know is where these people who are coming to buy tokenized stocks are coming from. That's the one question I have for Coinbase. They seem to be missing, I'm speaking as a shareholder now, criticism as a shareholder. They seem to be missing a lot of low-hanging fruit, and they're going for stuff that, I think their board and their, their internals would say is really, big, innovative jumps. And some of them might work, but so far, I mean, you had Base, you had the NFT marketplace, you had a few other things that seemed trendy and good and smart at the time that just fell flat. And now you're going to try and do tokenized stocks. You're not going to be the only game in town. Robinhood has been preparing for this too, like I said, and there's probably other exchanges and apps that I'm not even thinking of that have been preparing for this as well, but just don't have the legal firepower to take on. I shouldn't even say take on, to engage with the U.S. government, because you're not really taking on the government anymore. It's like they just wave you through. It's like that meme of the guy checking people at the door. He's not even touching them. That's how the SEC operates these days. It's the Gensler days are long gone. So anyway, as a shareholder, I think this is like, it's not the easiest way to add profits to your books, that's for sure. But if it works, it'll be gangbusters. We'll just have to wait and see.
There's a good story on Reddit I want to bring up. A guy named Apprehensive File 552, and he wanted to buy a hard asset, right? Because he sees his currency being devalued. I believe he lives in Australia. And so what he did, he went out, he bought 2 gold bars, each from a different seller on eBay. And each gold bar was 1 ounce. So that's the range of $1,600, $1,800. I don't know, something like that. USD.
No, USD is an ounce of gold is 3,400.
Yeah, so the 2 ounces.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, you bought 2 of them. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
quite expensive. That's a big buy.
6,800.
Yeah.
And so it turned out after some analysis, I don't know how he fucking came up with this analysis, the gold was fake. Right, he bought it on eBay, spent 6,700 USD, decent amount of cash. And this is essentially why I Bitcoin, right? Because with Bitcoin, if somebody sends me Bitcoin, I could verify it with very little resistance. I have my laptop which runs it, my node is 15 years old, give or take. It takes pennies to run every day, and so that's how much it costs for me to verify every transaction. Bitcoin's proving itself to be superior in so many ways. And this is another way, because I could verify it easily. I could move it across space. Doesn't matter how far, sometimes for pennies, sometimes for dollars. I don't need to hire security guards to protect it. And I'm hoping that Buddy learned a lesson here. He seems like he wants hard assets. Hopefully he learned a lesson that there's something better out there, and maybe we have another Bitcoiner that's born. I saw this story. I was like, why just buy gold?
Not that hard to test an ounce of gold, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, because an ounce is not that big. It's not that big a unit. So what you would do is basically get what's called like an acid board. And we used to do this all the time at the pawn shop. So I'll give you the quick rundown. Let's say you get like a board, okay? There's like a little black board. And what you do is you rub the gold on the board, okay? Until you leave a nice big line. Then you do another big line next to it. Another big line next to it. You might do 4 of them, okay? Most of the time you do 4 if you don't know what carat the gold is. And in the kit, you get 4 or 5 acids. One is for 10 karat gold, one is for 14, one is for 18, one is for 24. And what you'll find is that as you move through the acid grades, the gold will stop disappearing when the acid touches it. The acid will no longer erode the gold that's been left on the board. That's how you know what carat the gold is. So presumably what this guy did was leave a bunch of scratches, use the 10 karat, and the 10 karat acid just kept erasing it over and over and over again. So interesting. I will note that I didn't see the story, but I think I've said this on the show before. The definition of gold actually varies jurisdiction to jurisdiction. A lot of people don't know this. For you and me, Len, we're Italian. Most of the gold I own, was gifted over the years is 18 karat. Like my chain is, I think my chain is, maybe it's 14 actually, but my ring
This
is
says
10.
99.99% pure gold.
So that's 24 karat. Should be 24 karat that he bought, right? Some places offer 8 karat gold, which is not legally gold in the United States, Canada, and a few other places. But in Ireland, for example, it used to be legal to sell 8 karat gold. That's a lot more nickel and other metals than it is actual gold. So it's a hard gold, as the saying goes. Your gold is more soft and malleable the closer you get to 24 karat, and the closer you get to 0, which is, by the way, just a percentage. So 24 to 24 is 99.99. That's the math, basically. And then as you go down, 22, 18, 10, etc., are all different percentages of 24, and that's where you get that 3-digit number. So anyway, a lot of places don't even allow 8 karat gold, but some do. And so some places are still producing 8 karat gold, which if you brought to a shop here in Canada or in the United States, you'd be, told this is nickel, basically is what they would tell you. And they may buy it, they may not, but the smelting cost, the scrap cost is more than the worth of the gold, basically, is the story there. So anyway, little gold info for you. I agree. I would not be buying ounces of gold unless it was from a bank. That'd be the only place I'd buy, or Costco, I guess. I trust Costco. Costco will probably let you return that gold in 3 years if you decide you didn't like it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they? Because then they'll still be able to resell it, right?
Yeah, be up in value, probably.
Right. I was thinking about gold, and aside, there's a case use for it in industrial settings.
Yeah,
right? Or your phone, and like Bitcoin that obviously doesn't work. There's no physical.
The use case for industrial gold is basically, as a percentage of the value prop, it's
right. 100%. But there is so I'm just trying to think what's the value of gold? Not really what's the value, what makes it desirable to own. But I think it does one thing, and it does better than Bitcoin. I have to admit this. Stealing Bitcoin and large quantities of Bitcoin is, I think, for sure, it's easier than stealing large quantities of gold. So hypothetically, if you have amassed a great deal of wealth, like the Federal Reserve, or is it the Federal Reserve or the Treasury that owns the gold in Fort Knox? Either one.
The Treasury.
The Treasury. So they own it. So if that was in Bitcoin, theoretically, in one address, you could steal it all really quick. They would obviously put in multiple addresses to make it harder to steal. But still, stealing all that gold is physically impossible without really an army. But Bitcoin, in terms of stealing it, it's a lot easier to do. So with respect, that's I'm going to say is gold could be better. It's harder to steal vast quantities of gold than it is Bitcoin. Other than that, Bitcoin wins.
Yeah, I agree. And I think more and more people are waking up to that. I haven't looked at the price since this ceasefire. Before I was, when I was pinching a loaf there, I was looking 105,000,
it almost hit 106.
And by the way, like the gold price didn't really react to that instability the way that you might think it would have. The gold guys say a lot that this is a weird argument they make, and I don't know if I agree with it or not. I haven't looked at the price history, and I don't know that much about how gold trades during geopolitical turmoil. To be perfectly honest, I haven't done that research, but a lot of the gold guys say that during inflationary times, the reason gold didn't rise is because gold is actually a political turmoil hedge, an uncertainty hedge. And then when times are uncertain, you have war in the Middle East, nuclear sites getting hit, president making a speech 10 p.m. on a Saturday, gold doesn't move either. And then they say, well, gold has already sniffed out this issue and the price is already there, and it's actually waiting for the next inflationary impulse to make us it's Schrodinger's gold case, basically. And every time there's a one or the other situation, the opposite situation is what the gold bugs say they're waiting for. I've seen this a bunch over the last year because there's obviously been tons of geopolitical turmoil and tons of inflationary impulses. So I don't know. Well, make it that what you will.
Trade on the weekend. When this
gold doesn't trade Saturday, but it opens Sunday night with oil, with everything else. When commodities open, it opens with them.
Is that because it opens overseas somewhere?
No, it's I think it's a Chicago Merc exchange, right? I'm pretty sure.
The Merc.
Yeah, Mercantile Exchange. I'm pretty sure that's the one that commodities trade on. I'd have to. Someone can fact check me on that, but I haven't looked at that in a long time. I do know it opens on Saturday or Sunday night though. Sunday at 7 or 8, depending on what time the market's closing, based on daylight savings time, et cetera, et cetera. That's Eastern Standard for me. I don't know what it is for everybody else, but
I'd put time locked my corn in my title here.
Nice.
Because, well, and it's leading up to this next story, because the reality is people should learn how to time lock their Bitcoin. $5 wrench attacks, or whatever it costs these days to buy a wrench to make some damage, is becoming more prevalent these days, because if people that own Bitcoin, well, you're going to be a target, right?
Yeah.
So if you time lock it, it's locked away. There's a story about this guy, 23-year-old dude in France, and he suffered this past week on Tuesday, so last week on Tuesday, but he was abducted by kidnappers, and they had provided specific demands to his family in order to release him. And in order to release him, they wanted two things: one, 5,000 euro in cash,
Yeah.
and the second, they wanted to hand over the ledger device that he owns.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it's unknown how much Bitcoin or shitcoins he has on that ledger. But remember, not too long ago, we also had the co-founder of Ledger. He was kidnapped, and remember, they cut off his finger.
Time is flying by. I actually don't remember that, but maybe
this happened late last year.
Okay,
that this happened, and this is becoming. You see more and more of these stories coming forward. Not to say that it's rampant, but it's becoming, as I say, like if you have Bitcoin, people know it. You're becoming a public target. Liana Wallet, Liana, is one that you could learn how to, or you could use to time lock your Bitcoin. You could attach that to your to your cold card and everything. So it works like that. It's open source, the whole 9 yards. Check it out. Learn how to time lock and do it. So that way, there's just no way you can physically move the Bitcoin or digitally move the Bitcoin until a certain time has passed, a certain amount of blocks have been passed. And by doing so, your Bitcoin's protected. So that's all. It's more of a public service announcement. Learn how to time lock your coin.
So wizardsardine.com/Liana, I think, is the website. And if you're ever questioning, how much do Joey and Len really know about this stuff, you'll remember the first time we heard about this on the show was from, I think, Mr. Arnome, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. He came on. He was the first person to tell me about it.
That's right. Before. Yeah. So if you're looking for, if you are trying to outsource some of your thinking, I don't recommend that, obviously, but there's not really a better guy than Mr. Arnome. I don't think, like this guy's been around. He's, maybe I'll call him an extremist, but I like him. And I think he's an honest actor, which is those are the two most important things, whether I like somebody and whether I think they're honest. At least that's my metrics for deciding whether or not I should trust somebody or look into something they're doing. And the Liana wallet's like a nice UI too. Nice, easy GUI. The process for time locking itself is a fun learning experience, and I recommend maybe not going all in with anything at first. But that's the case for everything, right? Don't time lock anything you're not willing to lose, and try it out and see how you like it. I can't recommend it enough. The idea that you're going to subject yourself. We joke about this all the time on the show, okay? That Len and I take security very seriously. Not so seriously that we're not putting our faces out there, but knowing my face or picking me up somewhere is not going to be enough to get my Bitcoin. Because I've been around long enough to see these attacks over and over again. Len's been around long enough to see these attacks over and over again. It's going to be a lot more difficult than that. And I think the more that Bitcoiners start appreciating this, and also, Len, the ease with which you can basically take yourself off the target list, more people are going to do it. I don't see why not. And as the world becomes more and more dangerous, thanks to certain policies being enacted all over the place, I would say to people that this is something that's non-negotiable. You have to have a second layer of protection to your Bitcoin to prevent the wrench attack. Wrench attacker is not that bright, okay? And so what you don't want is to wind up in a situation where you're trying to reason with somebody that just doesn't care what you have to say. If the stuff is locked by code, it's not up to you. It's not up to them. And that's all there is to it. The party's over before it even starts. So to me, it's like, think about doing this. Think about learning about it, then think about doing it, And there's tons of resources. Liana has some good resources on the website, and I'm sure there's other stuff out there as well.
I got a beauty of a story here, Joey. This is a good one. It's comes from Jasper County, Texas. Never heard of this place, but it's just northeast or northwest of Houston. And a family over there was duped into paying some $25,000 USD in Bitcoin to a scammer. And how this was stuff was, it's the stuff of fucking absolute legend. And the scammer claimed to be a government employee, and the family owed some $25K in fines. Right, so he was able to convince them. You guys owe some fines. We need $25K to settle it. All right, in Bitcoin, by the way. So they told the family to go to their local Bitcoin ATM, and it was in this case it was called a Bitcoin Depot ATM. That was the name of it.
Good name.
And yeah. And they managed to deposit $25K into that fucking machine, and the Bitcoin was sent to the address provided by the scammer. And they realized they were had. That shortly thereafter, they contacted the police. You know what happened? This is fucking truly interesting. The sheriff came by with the power tools, fucking cut the thing open, and recouped the money that was put in. Right, it was $25K. In fact, $32,000 was recouped in total. So around $7,000 was purchased by other folks out there. This seems rather a very popular Bitcoin ATM. But what's fucked about all this? The money, the $25K that the family put in, they gave it back to the family. Like the police gave it back to the family. But unless I got my facts wrong, right?
You absolutely hate when people who get conned get their money back.
In more than one, because there's a victim here. Yeah. And the victim is the Bitcoin ATM company.
Yeah.
Because they're in the short end. Yeah. They're the ones that sent the Bitcoin to the address. So they, in terms of their obligation, they fulfilled it.
Yeah.
The scammer got their Bitcoin. The idiot family got their money back. But these guys who should have collected the $25,000 US to have facilitated this transaction, they're out. They're out quite a bit of money. What a fucking stupid story. Who the fuck has $25,000 cash just sitting around?
You can't get it out of the bank, I'll tell you that.
They had it to begin with. So what the fuck are they doing? And not only that, they were convinced that they had to pay a $25,000 fine. So what are they doing? They must be doing something shady. For somebody to have easily convinced them, you got to pay $25K. What the fuck is this, man?
This is a funny story. Okay, number one, how would you not know that you had $25,000 in outstanding fines? I would have loved to have heard what those fines were for, according to the scammer. Like, how many parking tickets? How many outstanding water bills or whatever? Like, how is it possible that they thought they owed $25,000 to the local government? That's a story all on its own, number one. But number two, the Bitcoin ATM company, I don't know what the rules are here, but I do know that, there's attempts to stop scams from happening. For example, when you go to Bull Bitcoin to buy, what does it ask you before you get your buy down?
Your address.
Is this an address that you have? Are you sure this is your address? Like, all these questions. And Bull used to have like a full page banner on the old website. Scammers are trying to get your Bitcoin. Make sure that this is an address you control, that this is not a scam address, that you are not getting had, that you are not getting socially injured, whatever, right? They had that stuff. ShakePay, same thing. They have the same shit on their website. I bet you Adam O'Brien over at Bitcoin Well has a screen on his ATMs that says, if this isn't an address you control, do not send your Bitcoin here. Make sure you're not getting scammed, blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin Depot, I'm guessing, has the same thing, unless they don't. And then my question is, what's the law around that? If there is a law that says you have to have that warning screen, or that the ATM owes some level of diligence, warning screen or something similar, and didn't perform that diligence, and so owes the money, then maybe it makes sense. Otherwise, Len, I'm with you. And we are redundant on this topic. I think that the ATM company gets the short end of the stick. The guy who made the mistake is reimbursed and does not learn a lesson. And the scammer makes out with the same value in Bitcoin anyway. So a lot of winners here, but the ATM company, not one of them. That's for sure.
Another scam that took place, or it's more of a hack, in Iran. Now, I know there's other things going on in Iran. They've been taking it on their chin quite a bit this past week. But
that's one way to put it, yeah, sure.
One of their exchanges over there was hacked.
Yeah.
And the exchange is called NoBitex. And apparently this is the first Iranian digital asset exchange market for trading Bitcoin and the top altcoins with IRR, they say. This is according to them. So there was a hack that took place. $48 million was siphoned from the exchange on June 18th. So this is A custodial exchange, people are trading or buying and just leaving it there thinking that it's safe. This is a perfect indication why you should not leave your Bitcoin anywhere. I like Bull Bitcoin because it's not custodial. You take it, it's immediately sent to your address. Never trust anybody to hold on to your Bitcoin. In terms of the 48 million that was siphoned, this was 7 million users were impacted. And you know, Iran has about 91 million people over there. That's including children and, you know, the very old.
Did Ted Cruz tell you that?
I just checked Google. I mean, I'm basically.
Do you not know that meme?
No.
Tucker and Ted Cruz. Tucker asking Iran how many people live there, or asking Cruz how many people live in Iran. He's like, I have no idea. And Tucker's like, you want to invade a country you don't know the population? You don't know anything about it. It's like,
you know, with respect to, does it really matter if the U.S. wants to invade?
Obviously, it doesn't fucking matter.
They got the fucking firepower to duke everybody into oblivion.
It doesn't matter.
But you know, there you go. So I know more than 91 million people. So, anyways, apparently was a pro-Israeli group that is claiming responsibility for this attack, and it's just another one of these stories. You hear about them all the time. Don't use any exchange that is holding on to your Bitcoin. I mean, if you do use one of them, just pull it off right away. Don't keep your Bitcoin on there. Don't trade. You're just asking yourself for fucking really problems in the end.
Yeah.
Put your Bitcoin cold storage on keys that were never generated in a place where it was touching online, always offline, all that bullshit. Mm-hmm. You're good. That's the way I do it. I sleep well at night, but you know, everybody do what you want. Eventually you get burned. And at that point, like you say, you touch the stove when it's too hot, then you learn. But I'm trying to teach you from, you know, other people's experience. Learn from them. Let them pay the price, and you'll benefit from that.
Incredible. Sharing the knowledge. Yeah.
You know, I have to give you, and I don't want to bring this up again because it may hurt, but you remember a long time ago, you set up your cold card with not very high entropy.
Oh yeah, I remember, of course.
And I don't want to get into this, but I have this to give credit because you brought up that story. You were forefront, and that was something like I learned from that. I learned, my God, when you set up your fucking cold card, make damn sure.
Spend time, man. Spend time.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm a big fan of learning from others because that way I don't have to pay the price. So that, and I'm trying to use that example for this. Look at these people that fucking got ruined as a result of it. So don't do them.
I think you're 100% right. And I'm glad I shared that story too. I think it
I
turned out to be pretty important for a lot of people. And, you know, it's important not only to share those stories, but to pay attention to when they're shared and not just go on Twitter and, you know, dunk on people, because you never know what mistake you will make in a rush, what mistake you will make when you're not paying attention, what mistake you will make when you're on autopilot. I mean, you know, how many people are driving every day on autopilot and make an error and don't even realize, you know, when they made it? You know, the sort of best thing to do to demonstrate this point, if you ask somebody about their drive to work, okay, my drive to work is like 10 minutes long, let's say. If you ask somebody about their drive to work, do you think they'd remember anything about it? Anything. They wouldn't remember anything about it because they're so just zoned out on autopilot that they're not thinking about the turns, the signals, the time they had to brake a little early, time they broke a little late, time they, you know,
it's something that's to be out of the ordinary for you to remember.
Exactly. And so once you start operating in Bitcoin at that level, you are on autopilot as well. And it's important that you don't wind up on autopilot in this thing. Because if you do, you will wind up hastily setting up a cold card and giving away, you know, what's probably now then, I don't know, 20 grand, something like that. It's got to be a big number. And so, you know, I'm pissed about that. But that mistake, you know, when the fact that it happened when it happened saved me from doing it again and saved me from having other people do it. And so I'm better for it. But yeah, at the time, it was fucking annoying. It was a big time issue for me. And I told a few other people in my personal life, and they're like, Bitcoin's a scam. Not like more hassle, right? And so, just, you know, take your lessons when they happen to you. And of course, take them when they happen to somebody else. It's invaluable and it's free advice.
100%. And I don't want to say it was a good thing that happened to you, but if it did.
It was a good thing. On the whole then, like, it's a net negative in the moment, but how could it not be a good thing on the whole? That was like 4 years ago or something, right? Like it was a long time ago now.
In the long run, I think it helps you, because imagine if you were putting like more and more into that, and
for sure,
your stack was. So yeah, it's good to go through this early on, and so people out there learn how to set up your cold card correctly. Yeah. I have a couple of stories, but I think we have time for one more. I can't believe we it was much longer than I thought it would be. We have tariffs obviously being imposed on China, Canada too. The United States is imposing it. And so one casualty of this tariff war are ASICs. It's something we don't really think much about, because the majority of these, they're coming from Chinese-based companies like Bitmain, right? Yeah. And so these ASIC companies, they're trying to circumvent the tariffs, at least the tariff barrier, by setting up shop within the United States and creating production facilities in the United States. So that's really cool. And that's, I'm looking at that, and it's not just getting around tariffs. There's other benefits too. When they manufacture it there, think about it, the majority of their sales are to the United States. So in terms of shipping and storage, it's much less because you're shipping it locally, and the lead time is going to be much shorter. So it's a lot better if it's done over there in the United States.
Right.
And I'm wondering, like, in terms of the manufacturing though, like how much is going to be done in the United States, or that chips going to be assembled somewhere else? Because I think TSMC is the one that does the chips right now. I don't think they're going to, unless the chip axe is going to be moving stuff over. I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts here that I just don't know. But these ASIC companies, they do want to set up manufacturing within the United States, which I find to be cool. Maybe there could be a time in the future, I don't know, they could just take it. They can nationalize it, right? If they really, if they look at, either United States looks at Bitcoin, or more importantly, I think China as like an adversarial and like somebody that's just an enemy, and they think it really goes south, they could take this and take it for themselves and utilize it for them. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of different things that could happen as a result. Probably not. Just food for thought more than anything else.
I want to see what happens with these tariffs in terms of like the new incentives that are going to drive manufacturing jurisdictions and materials used and things of this nature. It's funny, like people don't realize that incentives were such a huge part of the life that Americans enjoy now, in a way that they just had no idea about in the past, specifically when it relates to military. Like, for example, okay, I just found this out a little while ago. Do you know where and why Silicon Valley became Silicon Valley in the United States? Fighter jets in the early American military were having trouble with components melting during flight missions. And so they had to come up with a material that was both strong enough to withstand the heat and also served their purpose in terms of circuitry and electronics and whatnot on board the ship. They ended up doing that with silicon. And so silicon became the hub and the sort of backbone for the technological revolution. It started in America because fighter jets needed it so that they didn't melt during missions. Ended up becoming the center of computers and whatnot, right? And so when you think about stuff like, okay, I got to manufacture something that's exempt from tariffs and I might have to use different materials or whatever. Like, that's how revolutions in technology start. Not Tim Cook giving a speech about, Apple Glass or whatever. Not Palmer Luckey talking about, the newest, latest, and greatest in fucking napalming brown kids 100 million miles away. Those are part of it, but the real revolution starts based on necessity. And necessity is the mother of invention, as people like to say. I think that, we kind of forget about this stuff. And some of the greatest stories in American ingenuity and innovation came from the weirdest starting spots. And who knows, Len, maybe this is going to be a weird starting spot. It's still so early. These tariffs are what? 100 days old? 60 days old? Something like that? When was Liberation Day? Was it in April? Was it in May?
I can't even remember now. It seems like so long ago.
It does seem like a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure it was only like 6-7 weeks. So I don't know. Like, that's, talk about being early. You're early on this. Let's see what comes from these tariffs, taxes, and late night press conferences from DJT. I think, you never know what's being born around the world as a result of these policies.
I think that's it for the Bitcoin stuff.
Sure. Okay.
I think it was much longer than I thought we wouldn't. But I even have
good session. Good session. It was good. I'm glad you started while I was taking a shit. I'll explain some more about that in the second half of the show.
Oh, I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Come back tomorrow if you're on audio, if you're on video, or with us live. Don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere, and we'll be right with you.
Yeah, and please time lock your Bitcoin. Do that.